Welcome to the Sales Queen podcast, where we teach women how to turn their skills into sales and monetize their message so they can finally sell with the clarity, confidence, and certainty that they've always wanted to. No longer does the game of sales need to be an old boys club. It's time for you to sell like a queen. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Sales Queen podcast. I am so honored to be here with an absolute giant in the world of sales, Michele Gay. She is a CEO, founded her own company that is an incredibly successful company you guys will be hearing all about. Michele, we were just having such good conversation even before we were rolling. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for being here. I am so looking forward to our conversation today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, the first question that we like to ask everybody on the show is, why don't you tell us kind of your origin story as far back as you want to go of what parts of your life you really feel like formed you into the entrepreneur and the person that you are today. So I'll turn that over to you. And I'm so excited to hear this.
Yeah. Sure. I'm happy to dive in. I'm a very accidental entrepreneur. I mean, I did not study one business class, never even had an interest in it. I was a microbiology major and then became a science teacher and then was a stay-at-home mom. So the fact that I'm here is a testament to anyone that and literally anyone can do anything. The thing I possess that my parents gave me is I have an insane growth mindset. I actually don't think there's anything I can't do if I want to do
Come
it.
on.
Tell me, you want me to do this, I can figure it out. I can do it. I'll do the schooling if I'm passionate about it, if I believe in it. I will be relentless. And part of that came from me having the gift of seeing a lot of very successful people. And this is going to seem really kind of rude, but this is the honest answer. I'm seeing a lot of very successful people that I didn't think were smarter than me or more experienced than me, like killing it in the world. And I'm like, if them, why not me? Why not me? Right. So I've always been someone who again, I was a teacher, and for all the teachers out there, huge kudos. I was a public school teacher. I joined Teach for America, and I didn't know a thing about teaching. And if you think teaching is easy, if you're a listener, if you're thinking teaching is easy, after being the CEO of this global brand, there is still nothing harder than teaching for me. That was the hardest thing I have ever done because it is so incredibly emotional. And all through my life, I've just sort of taken on these experiences and tried to figure them out and be the best that I can be at them.
Wow. That's incredible. So one thing that stuck out to me that you said is you were able to be around a lot of successful people growing up. How were you able to get in those rooms and kind of rub elbows with those people?
Yeah, I mean, I was very lucky to grow up in an upper class family. We always say there's two families. My older brother and sister grew up with the hardship, and then I came along much later. I'm 10 years younger than my oldest sister, and we grew up in a more upper class community. So I was really around my friends. Their parents were very successful. And then I went to an Ivy League college, and a lot of the people that I graduated with went on to successful careers. My husband went to Harvard. All of his friends are super successful. And so we were able to actually really have good relationships with people who make a ton of money, or whatever your definition of success is. We know people in those realms, and that's been really great for me. It's been really you see people and they're just normal people,
Yeah.
Bill Gates is a normal person who had a dream, who had a passion for something and pursued it. Every successful person, I mean, and I'm not minimizing the intelligence level of a lot of people, because there's a lot of insane intelligent people out there, but at the end of the day, anyone can do anything. And as Mel Robbins says, if your passion burns brighter than any obstacle, any problem, any, inconsistency, you're going to make it happen.
Absolutely. So you were a school teacher and you went to an Ivy League school. Your husband went to Harvard. Tell me kind of the timeline of you guys getting together, you being a teacher, and then kind of when things changed and how you found ultimately and had the courage to be I'm going to start my own thing.
Yeah.
which is amazing.
So he's my high school sweetheart. We dated my senior year, and then we knew we were going to get married after our senior year in high school. But we parted ways because we're like, let's go live our lives. And we're at some point around your age right now, Megan. We said, let's do this. Let's get married. And he was on an amazing trajectory in his career. And I had just come off my teaching career and was working in making websites. I was a project manager on websites. And then when our kids were really little, we had decided that he was going to be the primary breadwinner. He got his MBA at night and on weekends from Cornell in their business program. And I actually studied with him. So I started learning a little bit about, I was like, let's get a 2-for-1 out of this deal. Like, I'm not going to get the degree, but at least I'm going to learn. So we were studying together to the extent that I had time for, because again, we had 3 little kids, like a
Yeah.
brand new baby. My third one was a brand new baby. And then my sister, who was the head of our family business, decided to retire. And my dad said to me, I need you to step in and run the business. And I was like, I really don't want to do this. My kids were little. The commute to get to the office was 2.5 hours from where I
Oh
lived.
my.
And I was like, I really don't want to do this, but someone had to step up and step in. And so I did. And I said, I'm going to do this for 3 months, and then we're going to hire someone to do it. And after 3 months, my family said, we really don't want to hire someone to do this. Please do it. You only have to come in 2 days a week. Please do this job. And that's how I started. Is I started running our family businesses, and one of the family businesses is called Alcone, and that's our professional makeup sort of like arm of our family businesses. So we sell tens of thousands of products to, tens of thousands of makeup artists worldwide. That's our distribution. And so we're a very niche company in that only pros shop us. Like, if you're a professional makeup artist anywhere in the world, you know Alcone.
Wow.
And so I started running that. And what I realized at the time is that it was really our pro makeup artists that kept us alive for generations. I think we're just over 7 decades as Alcone right now. And it was the pros who could shop anywhere. Sometimes they could shop cheaper. Sometimes they can get better service. Their websites at other companies were better, but they shopped with us. And they
Hmm.
did that because we were a family. Literally, our family became an extended family with pro makeup artists.
Mm.
So we decided to lean into this concept of community. And a couple of things came out of that. We started a marketplace where pros could showcase their work and people who are looking for pro artists could go. So we became sort of an agency. That was one idea that we did at the time.
Huh.
But the other one for me was finances. My sister's a pro makeup artist. I've worked with pros my whole life, and I know that it can be feast or famine for many of them. I
Yep.
also know that there's, physically, makeup artistry can be incredibly demanding, hauling your kid around, standing on your feet for 8 hours. And I was like, not everyone can do this until their, retirement age, because their bodies literally won't let them do it. And my sister actually was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis at the time. So we knew a
Oh.
makeup artist like her was going to have an expiration date if she couldn't hold a brush, right? So we started thinking about this, and I was like, so many pros bring their clients to us, we should actually figure out a way that we can compensate them for referrals. And this was sort of like affiliate links were kind of coming out. But when I
Yeah.
looked at what affiliate links would bring to someone from a shopping list, it was like $10, $12. I was like, that's not enough. We need to give them more. And then we were like, well, what if 1,000 people do this? We're a tiny family business. I can't manage 1,000 people. This was before Facebook Lives and really Facebook groups sort of took hold. And I was like, we need people who will be like team leaders and that we can pay to like lead teams and teach them how to do this and show them the systems. And I was like, I think I just made a direct sales company. And so then I was like, wait a minute, no, everybody in the world hates direct sales. Makeup artists hate direct sales. This is not going to work. And then I went back and I tried to recook all the ingredients, everything I wanted, flexibility, unlimited income, the ability to sell what you want, that you authentically believed in, the opportunity to lead if you wanted to. And I was like, every time I cooked these things that I wanted, it came back direct sales. And I was like, what am I so resistant to? And the final kicker for me was that I was commuting 2.5 hours with 3 little kids. And I was like, and not commuting is huge. This is pre-pandemic. Remember, this is 10 years ago. And I'm like, the idea of not commuting and being able to work from home and really have a substantial income for me was like, why am I resistant to this? Women need this. People need this. And so that's when I decided to not, explore any other model other than direct sales. And so I was standing at the sink with my husband one night. It was like 10 o'clock at night and we were doing dishes. And I had tested this idea. I'd gone out and done parties in my neighborhood to test this idea of bringing our products to people. And I was like, I hate to do this because we're working so hard, you and I, but this idea is big. And I think this could really help a lot of people. And I think that this is what the world needs. I'm watching these women use our products and their confidence level is shooting through the roof. I'm watching people say to me, like, can I do this? I need to make more money and I can't leave my kids. Is there an opportunity for me to do this? And like, I just started seeing people lean into it. And I'm like, I think I might have lightning in a bottle here. And so he looked at me, he was drying as I was washing, and he was like, you have to do it. It's like there's very rare opportunities in life where you get to do something like this, where an idea just clicks with the world. We got to give it everything we can. And he was like, I'm going to put my career on the back burner. I'm going to be the primary caregiver, and we're going to make this work. And you're going to go out there and you are going to hustle. And that was it. That was the decision we made in that moment. And he did that. So for us, that was key, having that conversation, having permission from your partner, because there was a lot of nights where it was grueling, a lot of days it was grueling. I used to have this habit, and this is so insane to me, but I look back on who I was then. I would cry on the couch like every Friday. I was so spent because I was working constantly. I wasn't sleeping well. And I'm a very different leader than I was at that point, but that was me emerging into leadership. My brain wouldn't turn off. I was scrambling. I was overworking myself. But part of that part of my journey was a very, very important piece for me to be the leader I am now for other people. So that's a very long-winded answer to your question.
I love it. There's so many questions I want to ask. So one of the things that you said was that you're a very different leader than you were back then. What are some of the things that you initially tried as maybe a growth strategy or internal operations? Anything that you want to share that you think would be helpful for people watching, of just like, because I think a lot of times people are like, oh, well, now you're running an incredibly huge, not just a company, but literally a brand, like a global brand. And you were this, person who had a completely different career. Oh, lightning in a bottle, everything must have just been great. And I think it's really helpful to see like all the things that, no, I had to shift, I had to do this, I tried this. So what are some of those things maybe that you tried? And then what are some of the leadership lessons that you did learn that have made you into the leader that you are today?
Yeah. So, one of the things I thought was interesting, there was someone talking about, like, when you see successful people and they're telling you what's what, they're forgetting what they had to do previously. And I've always been sure to remember the early parts of the journey because it was grueling. And here's the thing, you don't know what's going to happen in the future. And had I known how hard this was going to be, I'm not sure I would do it. I'm not sure I would have done it. I mean, it was that hard. So I always remember that. But when you take each step every single day in succession, you're in that moment, you're thinking big ahead of you, but you're kind of like head down, like, let me get through this part of the journey. Okay, now let me get through this part of the journey. But there were 3 books that I read at the time that truly, truly were very important to me and changed who I was as a leader. The first one was called Thrive by Arianna Huffington. It is a fact-based argument on how you should work less and you will get bigger results. And for me, that concept, because I'm a workhorse, that concept to me was really like interesting because I was halfway through the book. I'm like, I'm still not buying this. And then the second half of the book, I'm like, okay, I'm in, but it felt like jumping off a cliff and hoping that my wings would sprout, right?
I'm gonna read that immediately after this call.
Yeah. I thought it was a life-changing book for me. I mean, in that moment, it's what I needed to hear. So, the second one was called The Happiness Project. It was very popular back then, and it was really truly trying to figure out how to shift your energy in everyday life. And I needed to hear that. There were little things because remember, I had little kids. So when I was stressed out, I was bringing that stress to them. And so things like have a dance party. You kind of create your 10 sort of quote unquote commandments of how you're going to create happiness in your life. And the first one of mine is this too shall pass. I really had to own that idea that in the moment when things were truly hard, in time, they were not going to be hard anymore. I wasn't going to think about them. They weren't going to break me. And I think as a leader, the thing I've grown the most of, like with, is this too shall pass. I believe that when there is something like it feels the sky is falling, because that happens when you run a business. There's these moments where it just feels like, I mean, the pandemic was like total implosion, moment for people. And I was like, it's going to pass. We're going to get past this one too. And it's that faith that if your idea is strong enough and you're still passionate enough, everything will be in your rear view mirror at some point, and hopefully you'll have learned from it. And then the third book was called 10% Happier, and it was about meditation. And it was super important for me to read. Meditation got me through some of the hardest times. And I think the thing for me that I really got out of meditation is there's one point in the book where they talk about your brain. Think of it like electrical firing everywhere, it's a lightning storm in your brain, right? And for meditation, like one idea is to sit back. It's like a waterfall of electricity, and you're going to sit in the cave behind the waterfall, and you're just going to watch it happen, and you're just going to absorb that moment. And that for me is what I did for literally 5 minutes every single day. And it completely shifted my energy and the way I thought about business. I was calmer. Like, if you're a business leader, you have got to meditate. Like, it is absolutely essential to quiet your brain. It's like rebooting your computer. And so that for me was huge.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I actually started reading 10% Happier because my therapist recommended it about a couple years ago, and it was interesting because I only got about a third the way through the book. And in the beginning, he's talking about all the reasons of kind of how he came to that. So I never finished the book because the first part of it actually made me more anxious, like hearing about all of his experiences. So maybe I should just like go back to the book and start like halfway through and be like, okay, give me the strategies.
It's so true. And I completely relate to that because I remember reading the book going, I'm so stressed out. And this guy is stressing me out talking about his stress. I totally get that. After I
Yeah.
finished the book, I was like, I think this book really helped me. I said to my husband, this book is really, really helping me. And he's like, at one point, I was so stressed out and I was just in a terrible mood. He looked at me and he's like, I think you need to read that book like 9 more times, like till you get 100% happier.
Oh my gosh.
But the practice of quieting your mind is essential.
Yeah, I completely agree. Completely agree. I love that. Cool. So what are some of the like twists and turns that have happened along the way in building this global brand? Because it wasn't a global brand from day one, obviously, it was a family business. So what were some of you've talked a little bit about the mindset shifts. What were some of the practical shifts that you kind of fell into direct sales because you felt like it was truly the best model? What are some of those shifts? And then after that, I want to talk about the inevitable question of why do you think that people hate direct sales so much? Is it a pyramid scheme?
Yeah,
All of that. Because I love how practical and like literal you are. I am that way too. And so I just want you to like put it out there for us.
you
You're like,
got it.
no, this is actually what it is. So give it to us. I'm excited.
So the practical twists and turns were first and foremost financing and capital. We were growing so fast that I didn't have the money to feed the inventory need, because you've got to put in so much capital to have the inventory you're going to need in 6 months to define your growth. So when your growth curve is super high and steep, like ours was, I mean, mind you, literally we went from 0 sales in like 2015. I mean, not zero, but like $10,000 a month in sales in 2015 to 87 million 3 years later, and 4 years later, over 100 million in sales. Think about that growth curve. I mean, think about everything from how do you ship packages? Nightmare. How do you keep your tech working? Disaster. How do you have a warehouse big enough to hold everything? You don't, and then how do you have the capital to feed that growth? So what happened was my father, who is just like the best, he's amazing. He's like, okay, everybody's putting their house up as collateral for capital. We're all doing it. So my dad and all five of us, I have 4 siblings, all put our houses on as collateral. And then we put our 2 family businesses, all the inventory and real estate that we had, all up for collateral from the bank to get the loan that we needed to feed it. But I ran out of that money. And it wasn't like I was spending frivolously. I mean, we were doing this on a shoestring, but there was so much inventory need that I was like running out of money even with that collateral. So I was like, all right, I need to go raise money. So I raised like 1.2 million as a friends and family raise. I had one person who invested $1 million in me, which was like huge, because I didn't have time to be a fundraiser. I didn't have time. But what I learned during that experience is really interesting. Less than 3% of the capital that's invested into companies goes to female founders, even though statistically female founders do better than their male counterparts in performance, which is insane to me. And if you are a woman of color, you have less than a 1% chance of getting capital. So for me, going out to these private equity companies and having them literally look over my head out the glass to see if there was anyone more important in the background, and I'm showing them that I went from 0 sales to, at that point, I think it was at 33 million in 2 years. Who wouldn't invest in that? And they're asking me questions like, well, what are you going to do if the growth goes down? And I'm like, then maybe I'll be at 20 million in 3 years. Still amazing. They were asking all these insane questions. And so capital for me was a huge problem. The biggest twist came in 2017. I get a message through my LinkedIn. I never pay attention to LinkedIn. I'm barely ever in it. And I get this email from LinkedIn, and it's someone saying, hey, Reinhold Geiger, the CEO and chairman of the L'Occitane Group, would like to meet with you. He saw a video of you in Madison, and he's really interested in what you're doing. And I'm like, what? I'm like, this is a trap. I'm like, we're going to go to this breakfast. Someone's going to knife us. We're going to be dead in a pool of blood. Like, what? This cannot be real. So I didn't even know who he was. I started Googling him. And the first thing that it says is Reinhold Geiger, self-made billionaire of the L'Occitane Group. And I'm like, what? So we wound up meeting him, and it took him 5 minutes to make this decision to go with us. It was nothing short of answered prayers for me. I mean, true answered prayers, a miracle have shown up at my doorstep. Now, yes, I worked hard. Yes, Madison and I put ourselves out there. We were constantly making videos. We were constantly presenting Lime Life. But at the end of the day, there's so many female entrepreneurs, founders who are doing the same thing, and they never get the capital that they need. So that was a big twist and turn. And what we decided was, he wanted to go global with Limelight. At the time, it was called Limelight. He wanted to go global with it. L'Oreal owned the rights to Limelight globally. Interestingly, they applied for those rights in 2016 when we were exploding. They took the word Limelight because outside of the US, you don't actually have to use the word. You can just pay for it. You can just file it as yours. So we couldn't go global with the brand Limelight. So we actually had to change our name and everything in 2017 to Lime Life, which was insane. Every bit of packaging, every bit of marketing material, every beauty guy that was with us had to change everything that they did because of the brand change. It was crazy. in order for us to go global. So that was a big, was a big, interesting project. But we partnered with L'Occitane in 2017. And then in 2018, we gave them more share of the company. So I was majority shareholder, my family and I, in 2017. Then we gave them more of the company to get more capital to go global. So that was a big, important step for us.
Wow.
And
I
then,
totally Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, I remember when it was Limelight because I've been following you guys forever, and I still catch myself sometimes. I'm like, wait, Limelight, Limelight. I like because I literally remember I've been following you guys for so long. So that's a really interesting story, and I appreciate you sharing that behind the curtain. Anyways, continue.
yeah, no, so it was great. And then it was just a rocket ship from there. And we hit the pandemic. And in 2020, that was a really good thing for people to, be part of direct sales in 2020. And we had a lot of people who were, buying from us for self-care reasons, which was great. We had a really, really good hand sanitizer that blew up.
Mm,
But then there was a huge trauma healing moment for our sales field in the end of 2021 and 2022. And it happened globally for all direct sales companies. And it's been very interesting for me to study this with our sales field because many of our sales field are mothers. So
mm.
during the pandemic, they were holding everything together. They were homeschooling. They were wiping tears. They were picking kids up the floor. I mean, my personal experience, my son was failing gym and art in middle school, homeschool. Like, what? How do I don't even know how to help him on this, right? So then my daughter is a senior in high school at the start of the pandemic, misses prom, misses graduation. I drop her off her first year in college, my very first child in complete quarantine, situation where she's not allowed to leave her room. In fact, the common room with all the furniture was piled up and it had yellow tape around it. And it was
That's
sort of like,
traumatic.
yeah, it was just, and then you hold on to these experiences as a
Yeah.
mother, you're just sort of like hoping that, keeping it together while everyone's falling apart. And then
Yeah.
the pandemic ends, my kids go off and they're doing great. It's definitely some scars that need to heal. And I'm like a wreck. I
Yeah.
realize I'm holding on to so much that I have got to get rid of. And it was the same thing with my sales field. Like we could not motivate ourselves. The biggest problem that happened during the pandemic as entrepreneurs is we all had a vision of where we were going. We believed passionately in it before the pandemic. We had vision boards, we had goals. Pandemic hits, we can't do any of those things. As
Yep.
much as we were trying to shift, to be honest, you would start, stop, start, stop. So maybe you want to meet with someone and all of a sudden they cancel. And so it just got to the point where you just had to sit and just hope the storm crossed over you as quickly as possible. Then when it left, all that wreckage was there. But it has taken a while for our sales field, and they're finally showing up to redream again, recreate their visions, re-understand that they have control of their lives, get
Yeah.
back into growth mindset. And so that's what we've been working on for the last 6 months is waking ourselves up and saying, wait, we do have control of our life again. Okay, what do I want to do? Where do I want vacations? Do I want, a new house? Do I want to pay down my debt? What are my goals, dreams, hopes? And we're
Mm.
starting to see people dream again. I always describe dreaming about your life as for all of us, we're socialized to be tethered to the ground. Some of us don't have as many tethers. I would say my parents really didn't put many tethers on me. So I really felt like I could do anything. But we're often socialized with these anchors to the ground, right? And when you release yourself of these tethers, you can actually dream bigger, you can go higher, you can float and see a bigger vision for yourself. For many women, the pandemic literally put so many ropes, strings, anchors, wires, chains on them so that when they came out, they had to actually consciously do the work to cut those, to free themselves of them, which I think is what's happening right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I so appreciate your honesty in that. I think one thing that I love about the way that you speak is that you have such ownership of even how you say we when you're talking about your sales force. And I think that that's even breaking a common misconception as people are probably listening, because when they think CEO of a global, you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars, right? Billions of dollars. Like, I don't think that they're able to oftentimes remove the real person, and somebody who's like, these are my people. Like, I think they think that they're just a robot that doesn't have a family and doesn't, it's just this like, oh, I don't have emotions, I don't actually care about the little guys. So maybe let's go into a little bit more about the structure of direct sales. Do people actually know who you are as the CEO? Like, just all the different misconceptions that I think people would either judge you for, judge direct sales for, just anything that you want to speak about. And I'm super excited just to hear all your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really big piece of why Lime Life's been successful is I'm a mom. That's who I am first and foremost. I'm a woman and I'm a mom and I'm a friend before I'm anything else. And so
Mm,
everything I come from in terms of choices, decisions is all from heart, right? So if we're making a decision on, do we want to keep that quality, that high quality aloe in our skincare products that's medical grade? Or do we want to reduce the cost and go with like just a normal, regular, everyday aloe? It's easy for me to make the decision that no, we do not cut costs on that. We give them the best absolute ingredient because I'm a woman and I'm selling this to my friends. I am not detached from the product and I'm not detached from the sales field and I'm not detached from the heart of the company. And I think that's a very big piece of it. I do this with my niece. She is the same way as me. We are very heart centric in everything that we do. Um, and I have a lot of great people around me that when I lose that moment, because we all step outside of that, we forget our stand from time to time. You have to have people around you that go, is that really your stand? Is that the direction we want to go? And I think that's really important for me to have those people around me who aren't just yesing me, they're actually challenging me. And that's my sales field and that's the home office staff around me. Um, I try to keep myself in my stand, but they know me well enough and they know my commitment and they have a relationship with me that it's really great when they come to me. It's a gift when they come to me and say, is this really who you want to be? Is this a decision you want to make? Let's think about this. So I love that my sales field runs the company. Madison and I are the hands, but they are truly the heart and the brains behind the operation. And they're brilliant. These women are brilliant. And so one of the things I think happens with direct sales is you have CEOs who are not in the game. They're business centric, they're looking at spreadsheets, they're not in the game. They they're proud of the products to a certain extent, like maybe someone in their life is using them, but at the end of the day, it's just a business. And for me this is much more of a family. It really is. And I am incredibly passionate about helping women unlock their confidence and unlock their ability to understand they're worthy of making a lot more money than they do. Those two things are my passions. And so direct sales is the perfect way to do this because I watch a lot of people go through coaching and they have all these ideas and they're great, but direct sales allows you to implement it immediately. So if you go through a leadership seminar, you literally are in the game with your team and you're applying it immediately. So you're kind of learning as you go, you're implementing as you go, and you're unlocking your like true divine greatness and magic as you go. And I think it's very different than when I was in teaching and I was talking to the theoretical and the one day and the this, whereas all my students were probably going to forget all of that, maybe retain a little bit of it by the time that it they needed the critical thinking to implement something, right? So for us, it's great because you get to apply everything in the immediate. What I love about direct sales, which is a lot, I really love a lot of things. Number one, the product quality is essential. If you don't have great product quality in direct sales, people are not going to want to put their personal name behind the brand. And I'm really, really happy to have that happen. I'm passionate about making sure that we have high quality products because Alcone is my family's business. It's very personal to me, and I don't think a lot of people think that way in business from what I can tell in conversations I've been in. And the second thing that I think is really important is because of that passion, they care about giving it to their friends. They're not being pushy. They're not trying to make money. When they tell you, you need to try this, they're being for real because they actually believe that it is the best thing that you will ever try. And so consumers need to understand that yes, there's a business element to it and they're trying to acquire new customers and they're entrepreneurs, but at the same time, they really do believe what they're saying. They put their own name behind that ask. So if you're behind the counter at a department store selling makeup, your name is not behind that ask, right? So we have to separate that as a society. But the thing that I really like, the thing that I am so passionate about is traditional women, and people can come at me for this, but traditional business models do not work for women throughout their life cycle. They don't. In fact, I would argue that it's potentially a big conspiracy to make sure that women don't actually have substantial independent financial resources. Because when you are the primary caregiver, which I love, like being a stay-at-home mom was my absolute favorite job, or if you are the default parent, which most women are, structure of going into an office, working 9 to 5, coming home, cooking dinner, doing laundry, doing everything, it does not make any sense. It does not work for us. First of all, we have to pay for childcare, after taxes, the childcare and everything, you could break even. The next thing is the idea of progressing in a traditional business model, really hard. First of all, you're throwing elbows at your coworkers because that managerial position might only be open to a few of you. So now you're in a situation where your kid's sick at school, nurse calls you, come pick them up. You're competing with these other individuals, oftentimes potentially not the default parent or the primary caregiver, and you've got to go get your child. But the idea of like losing that promotion over that is something that you're constantly in pull with, right? Because someone else is deciding if you promote. You're not getting that choice. Someone else is going to look at this whole pool of candidates and say, you know what? I'm going to choose you. And it might be the dude that you've had beers with. It might be the guy that has never had to leave to go pick up their kid or stay at home from work because their child is sick. So it does not work for us on so many levels. I think the game is changing a little bit after the pandemic, which is nice. But direct sales does that. It flips everything upside down. It challenges every single assumption that a woman can't get things done at home, working from home, and managing kids. It challenges the assumption that we don't want more because when you give us the ability to promote on our own, we're going to go for it. And it challenges the assumption that, we can't have multiple revenue streams coming in at the same time on a flexible schedule and following the passions that we have. So I love this model because it turns the traditional business model upside down, shakes it, and says, let's try this again from a way that is good for women. If you're going to sit and start a society and you're going to build business models that benefit men, you'd build traditional business models. But if you're going to start a society where women can actually thrive and be super successful, you're going to build a direct sales model. That's what happened to me when I was challenged with how do I want to make this happen for makeup artists and how do I want to have that flexibility and the ability to go as high as you want and earn, as much as you wanted. I built a direct sales company. And when you stand in that position, that's what's happening. So females out there, listeners, I really hope you rethink the way that you see direct sales, not just for yourself, but for your friend who's doing it.
Yeah.
Because if we can band together and really support each other, female consumers are the most influential and significant part of our economy. If we can start supporting women in this model, we're going to change the world because you're going to give women independent income And when women have independent income, they invested in education. They invested in ending food scarcity. They invested in organizations like churches. They invested in, you know, dance lessons and all of this for their kids. And when we see that happening in communities, we actually watch the elevation of communities.
Yep. Yep.
So a little
Wow.
man bashing there, and I think it's it is my way. I will say that I also challenge women in the same way, in a different angle, because we all have to challenge ourselves. We have to really start questioning: is this the right way to do business in our world? If we want to see a more elevated, happier, more loving world.
Yeah. So I have like three different questions from that one thing you just said. So I that is the best explanation of direct sales I've ever heard in my life. First of all, I've never thought about it like that. I've been a part of different direct sales companies. That's how I started my entrepreneurial career. And you're absolutely right. You know, women are social beings in ways that men are not. Like men can have one best friend for 100 years, and you know they don't trust people. They don't like to share all their stuff, and women can go to coffee for 5 hours and I didn't know you 5 hours ago. You know what I mean? And so I love that explanation. And I've just never thought of it that way, that like, yeah, absolutely. Direct sales, if you're, you have kids, like you immediately don't have as many options, which was not your choice because you are the primary caregiver. And yeah, that's the most brilliant example that I've ever heard. So a couple things I want to ask from that. What three things. So you can answer in whatever order, and I have them written down so we can remind each other in case we forget. So one thing I want to hit before we're done is when you, let's say that you do have children at home, you are going into direct sales. What are some of the marketing secrets or things that you have found have made people shoot to the top, even if they're you know, super down in the down line, or any of these things where people are like, oh, well, it can't be me because I'm not at the top of the proverbial pyramid, you know, or whatever. So what are the things that actually you found that really work? And then number two, I do want to talk a little bit more about money from a female perspective. Like what are the mindsets that women need to break through mentally to even have space to make more money, to believe in that? And then third, what I want to talk about is just, are there any things that are out in the world about the specific compensation plan or the way that people get to the proverbial top or can actually make money, that you can really debunk those myths? Because I think that's a mental hurdle for people too, where they're like, oh, well, if I start today, you know, it's too late and I can't actually make $1 million. I can't actually make six figures because that's not the way the structure works, right? So yeah, marketing secrets, mindset, money stuff, and then any like myths that you want to debunk that would cause people to just like not take action.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Well, I'm going to start with a myth. I want everyone to stop seeing direct sales as this big lump, right? So I was telling you before, Megan, that like I see Lime Life really being sort of like, we are direct sales, and I'm proud of that model. But I also think we exist somewhere a little bit different than where most direct sales companies traditionally have been.
Mm,
Because I don't look at what other companies are doing and make decisions about Lime Life. I look at our sales field. I look at our heart. I look at our product quality. I look at our history. I look at where we're going. And that's how we make our decisions. So, whatever any other brand is doing, I don't really care. So,
love it.
um, you know, I think people, it's almost like saying all retail stores are terrible. Like,
Mm,
really? Or like all church organizations are evil. Like we can't lump, somehow direct sales has gotten lumped into this big blob that you would never apply to anything else in your life,
yeah,
right?
so
So
true.
I would say that's the first one. The second one is any company that is a place where if you're not at the top or starting early or the ground floor, like, and you can't win, that's not a company you should ever join. That to
Mm,
me, I don't even. I think there's some old traditional like payout models that used to do that, but like for our company, it doesn't matter where you are in the structure. Like that is completely irrelevant. Like your organization and your journey is completely independent on when you started.
mm,
Saturation is something you should think about. So if there is a brand that is super saturated, it may be harder for you. However, we have learned that when there is a brand identity, you actually can do better because there's already brand acceptance acceptance and awareness. So it's something you should think about, because saturation could actually be good for you if you build a business around that reputation, right?
Mm.
So what you want to think about is, the first and foremost, you want to make sure that you're in a company where you're passionate about the products. First and foremost, do not represent a company where you do not believe in the products. That's number one. Number two, you need to look at the history and the community. How are they making decisions? Who's in charge? Like, what's happening, like, in the brand? What's the vision
Mm.
of the brand? What's the brand dynamics? There's some amazing companies out there. I mean, Sarah is the CEO and founder of a company called Scout and Cellar. It's a wine company. She and I meet all the time. We were just on a podcast yesterday. She's amazing. I tell everyone, if you are into wine, join her company 100%. My friend Amelia, her mother started Epicure. Amazing. She's an amazing woman. Her products are amazing. They save me so much time. Like, if you're into cooking, join Epicure. There's also Tastefully Simple, the woman Jill who started that. She's phenomenal. She's incredible. I love her. She has been so helpful to me, like a mentor.
Mm.
Super incredible heart. Look at hers, Tastefully Simple. Like, there's so many incredible organizations. The guy John who runs this company called Total Life Changes, it's about wellness. He's awesome. You can't help but love him and his team. Like, if you're into wellness and the whole supplement movement, look at Total Life Changes. They're incredible. Like, there's some really incredible companies, and when you start talking about this with direct sellers, and you can say to them, listen, hey, like, if someone came to one of my beauty guides and said, hey, listen, I'm not a skin care and makeup person, but I'm super passionate about this. What company do you know that is great at this? And they
Mm.
probably know, because oftentimes they collaborate with people in those companies. And the companies where the sales fields collaborate with each other are generally the ones that really want to change your life. They want to make sure,
Mm.
because I work to serve my sales field, not my
Mm.
shareholders. So my sales field knows that, and they know other people in the space who have that sort of ethos, that business ethos. So all of those companies that I just mentioned, their comp plans, you'll win no matter what. But
Mm.
just like we were talking, Megan, to start a direct sales business, don't overthink it. We
Mm.
often, right? You were just telling me that when it comes to coaching, sometimes people are overthinking it and they just need to go back to the basics and do the basics. Sometimes people want to be airlifted over the basics, but that would be like asking a basketball player to not learn how to dribble and throw free throws. And at the end of the day, if you look at
Yep.
any athlete or any successful business person, it is about making sure that you work on the basics every single day, right?
Yep.
So if you're not working on the basics, you're trying to airlift yourself to success, it's never going to work. So the first thing you need to do if you're starting any business is, who am I? Who's the brand? What is my brand? What do I care about? And then you need to share that vision and that authenticity with people, whether it's face to face, whether it's on social media, whatever it is. But if you're funny, be funny. If you're not funny, don't try to be funny, right? Like, what is your authentic brand and who are you? Because if you live in that space of authenticity, you're never going to have a hard time trying to figure out, what is my next post, or who am I going to dress as a party, like at a party, right? Like Stella and Dot, my sister-in-law was huge in Stella and Dot. I didn't do it because I don't wear jewelry. You can see I don't have any jewelry on. It's not something authentically, I think, to do every single day. So it would become very inauthentic for me to rep that brand. Even
Yeah.
though their compensation is great, even though they're an amazing company, it would be inauthentic. So you have to figure out who you are and what are the things you're going to represent, right? And then the next thing is, you got to go to the basics. It's not that hard. It's all about customer acquisition. That's it. It's about
Yep.
customer acquisition. So how are you going to acquire customers in a way that's authentic and real and nice? Like, we have a couple of products that I don't use. I don't like them. I am not going to tell you to buy them. I'm not going to go out into the world and say, buy this product. When people ask me for a specific product that is going to solve a problem, that's one of those products that I don't like, I immediately say to them, we have that. I don't use it and I don't like it, but we sell a lot of it. So you can try it. If you don't like it, let's return it right away. Like, So you
Hmm.
have to know who you are first and foremost, and everything falls into place so authentically. And you were in it for the long haul. When you're
That's so good.
inauthentic, a couple of years in, you're like, this is burning me out, right? Like,
Yep.
and it's okay to change who you are because part of this journey is to actually see bigger visions for yourself. So that the
Wow.
next step in direct sales that I love is once people have this like customer acquisition down, they're like, oh my gosh, I can teach people how to do this. I know how to do this. I'm going to step into leadership. And then they unlock that vision for themselves and they're like, listen, I want to actually build a big team here. So it's almost like I described it the other day to someone. It's like if you own a bakery, a coffee shop, and you start getting customers, right? And you don't want one customer, your mom, who buys all the pastries every day. That's not a business. You want actual customers who come in and who love it and you get feedback from. And then you realize, wow, maybe what I'll do is I'll have a couple of friends open up the bakery in my city. And so now you have a couple more bakeries in that city. And then you're like, actually, this is a really good idea. I should franchise this out into the world. That's what the steps of leadership look like in direct sales. Start with your bakery. Once you get your bakery going, open up some other bakeries because then you're going to make more money. You're going to teach people how to do it. You're going to be better at it. You're going to learn more stuff and then franchise. That's what we're talking about here is the opportunity to take those three steps. And that journey is about unlocking who you are and your skills. And it's about unlocking your financial potential which all of us have in us. We've just been socialized out of it, right? Everyone who's listening to this podcast, you should make as much money as you ever dreamed and hope of. You're worthy of it. You're enough. Everything about you is enough in this moment. You've been socialized to believe that if you didn't get schooled right, or you don't have the right network, or you don't live in the right community, or you don't have the right hair, or the right body type, or whatever, or the right age, you've been socialized out of this idea that you can make money. It's a lie. Stop believing it. You actually can earn a ton of money if you start believing in that earning potential.
So good. I feel like we're having church. I love it. So, kind of closing us out, anything else that you want to say, like a little bit deeper about the socializing us out of money? Because I was just talking to my husband about this. I'm becoming more passionate about it. I think every like little mental step or financial step for me that we take as a family to the next level, you kind of reflect on the last level. And I just think about for me, the first several years of my business where I had certain mindsets and just the things that I learned along the way. And I'm like, man, why did I think that? Like, man, why was that a limiting belief? Man, what, like, who told me that? Where did I transfer that from just a thought that passed to actually ingrained in me? So what are some of the life lessons that maybe you have gotten to encourage people along the way, or just any words of wisdom for maybe somebody starting out, or maybe somebody that only saw poverty growing up, or just some of the things specifically for women that you would challenge people listening, or just helpful advice so that they could take that next step, resources, thoughts, just anything that you want
Yeah,
to share. Yeah,
yeah.
I'm excited for you to share that.
So definitely do some research on Carol Dweck and the idea of growth mindset versus fixed mindset. It's hugely
Okay.
important because what she discovered is what you're born into has absolutely nothing to do with your future. It's all about your mindset. Do you have a growth mindset? That kid who lives in poverty but grows up with that, mom, one day I'm going to buy you a house. Mom, one day we're going to go on a trip to Disney World because I'm going to pay for it. That's a kid with a growth mindset that's not looking around in his neighborhood and saying, this is my lot in life, right? So she did a lot of work around that. The second resource I highly recommend, Martha Beck's book, Finding Your North Star. It is brilliant. It talks about your social self and it really explores how we become socialized out of this idea of our greatness. But I always describe the way you get to a place in your life where you experience more happiness and financial wealth is like a rope ladder. One side of the rope is your confidence. The other side of the rope ladder is your emotions around money, your how you feel about your earning potential. And so when your confidence increases, you have to elevate you're understanding that you're allowed to make more money in order to step into that next rung. Otherwise, you're too twisted, right? So your confidence needs to increase and your financial like emotions around money needs to elevate.
Wow.
And when you elevate those two simultaneously, you're able to go up that rope ladder. But I watch a lot of women who do a lot of work on their confidence, but they don't think they're worth more than 100, 500, $1,000 a month paycheck. They're never going to get to that next rung on the ladder because they're not elevating and understanding that they are worth more. And then I have women who start making a ton of money in Lime Life, but their confidence level is down here and they literally fall off the ladder. They self sabotage, they quit, they
Yeah.
leave, all that drama that you sometimes see on Facebook is really a woman trying to experience growth. And it has oftentimes nothing to do with the brand. And that's not me
Mm.
skirting responsibility. I know these women. I love these women. And when they go out with a story, sometimes I know the story, what's behind the story, right? So you
Wow.
have to elevate both at the same time in order to get to the higher heights. But every
Mm.
single woman has stuff in their past. And this is why I did this podcast that I work on called Unpacking Eve. It's unpacking your emotions around money. One of the things that I had a huge aha moment, I was raised Catholic. The first Bible thing I can remember was it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than a wealthy man to get into heaven. And I thought, oh man, my family's wealthy. I am destined to hell and I
Wow.
never want to be rich. I absolutely don't want to be ungodly. And so for me, it took years later until I took 4 years of Bible study in college to actually unpack the fact that that had nothing to do with me pinning it on my financial potential. The
Mhm.
story in the parable was not that way. It was not like literal to that extent. And so it was really interesting for me to unpack that and go, okay, wait a minute, I can make a lot of money and still go to heaven, you know?
Yeah.
And I think for women in particular, probably for your listeners, the way that Christianity has sort of been positioned to us makes us seem that if we have a lot of money, we're a bad person.
Yep.
And
Yep.
what I want them to walk away with is that has nothing to do with it. How you actually spend your money is an indication of who you are as a person and what you believe in and the faith and the change you want to see in the world, right?
Yeah. 100%. I mean, I remember when the scripture unlocked for me that said, "Where your treasure is, your heart is." And I was like, "Well, what happens if I have no treasure?" You know? And I was like, so you think about like all the things that I believe that God puts on our heart. Like I remember, and I like can't tell this without getting emotional. So I apologize in advance. But like I remember growing up with my parents were pastors and in ministry and things like that. And so I remember there were times when we would literally go and my mom would be nervous whether we had enough money to pay for our groceries. And it still gets me to today. And it's a huge thing that drives me of why even my husband and I like we'll just ask the Lord to put things on our heart of like last week we were at Lowe's and I won like a $500 gift card and we're turning our house into an Airbnb because College World Series are coming up and you can make bank in like 2 weeks. Anyways, and I just felt the Lord prompting my heart and there's this guy who's like 7 feet tall working and you could just tell he had like no vision for his life. He just was kind of going through the motions. It was 9 p.m., at Lowe's. We were going there after a date night, just getting doorknobs, and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And the Holy Spirit spoke to my heart and was like, give him $100. And I was just like, okay. And that's why I can't carry cash around because God just tells me to give it away to people, like literally. And the Holy Spirit was like, give him $100. And I look at his shoes and I'm really tall too. And he literally had these boats of feet, probably size 18 or something. And they literally had holes in the front of them, like his toes were hanging out. But you could tell he just had like a low level of care for himself. And it was like I could feel it. Like I literally could feel that he like hated himself
Mhm.
and sticks out, these different things, 7 feet tall. So, anyways, Landon, my husband, goes and gets the car. And I was like, babe, I don't know how to like, I'm a woman, I don't want him to think like I'm like coming on to him, anything. And the Holy Spirit's just nagging me. And I was like, okay, Lord, like I'll do it, whatever. And so Landon goes and gets the car. We take the groceries out. Here I am, like walking back through the store. They're about to close in 15 minutes. Everyone working is like, "What are you doing? You clearly already checked out for your,
Mhm.
your materials, whatever." And I just walk up to him and I was like, "Hey man, like," and I just like awkwardly have this $100 bill. And I was like, "Hey, God just told me to give you this." And he's just like, "Okay." And I was like, "God bless you. Have a great day." And I just like run away. I was just like, and nothing like major happened. He didn't start crying, none of that. You don't do that for a response. But it was like the piece after that that I knew that I was obedient and that, and again, it's not like so I can look good. It's not so it's like, oh, look, I gave a guy $100. Nothing like that. But like the ability to do that is everything. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And I'm like, I don't even need to know what happens there. Like I hope he gets to buy, at least maybe half a pair of shoes, whatever. But you never know like why God tells you to do those things or why you pay for the groceries behind you or why you buy somebody Starbucks. But the ability to, Michelle, like the
exactly.
ability to, what can it hurt, And what makes me so angry, if I'm being honest, is people who like get this pious mindset about being poor. And I'm like, that's great for you. And if you want to live your life that way, awesome. But like, who are you helping?
Yeah.
Like, when's the last time that you actually were able to mobilize resources, which I'm sorry, it takes resources in this world. That's the way that it's set up. Like, who have you helped lately? That's great that you have 27 opinions about all these rich people that you've never talked to. But like, I don't know about you, but the wealthiest people I know are some of the most generous,
Mhm.
wholesome, wonderful, humble people that I've met. And you know what? There are jerks that are poor, there are jerks that are rich. Like,
Yeah.
but having the ability to actually change someone's life, like I want to do that. I want to help people, And so that's something that drives me and I know my husband and I every single day. And I think it stems from, knowing what it feels like you said, never forgetting where you came from. And,
Yeah.
and that's what it was for me was literally not being able to pay for groceries and seeing my mom's just like, just the shame of her wanting to provide. And I'm like, man, if I can do that for one person, like I don't, whether you have $1 million or not, like our ability to help people, like
Yeah.
there's nothing like that feeling of knowing that you just like made somebody's day a little bit.
And I love that story, and I'm so glad you did that and shared that with listeners because we've gotten to a place in our society of this position of judgment instead of this position of service. And we cannot be that society. That is a society that will not sustain itself. But for your mom, there's a lot of women in the world right now that are experiencing that in the grocery line. There's a lot of women that are going to the gas station and they're just filling their tank as much as they can and
Yep.
hoping that they can get through to the next paycheck. And that is why I am passionate about direct sales. Because if your mom had that option open to her, if you've got a cell phone and a Wi-Fi, you can have a $1 billion business. But more importantly, if you have a cell phone and Wi-Fi, you can make an extra $100 a month so that when you're on that grocery line, you have a little bit of cushion. You can
Yep.
you can say, you know what, honey, why don't you grab that packet of Starburst and
Mm.
just have that feeling in that moment because mommy's working really hard. And that's the lesson we want to pass to the kids and to our community is like, we're willing to step up and do the work. Just give us a path of opportunity.
Yep.
So if you're one of those people, there are options. There are paths of opportunity. Don't be so stubborn and not take them.
Yeah.
Embrace them and find out what you're about and be proud of yourself when you get that first paycheck. Be so
Mm.
proud of yourself, whether it's $5 or $1,000. Be so proud of yourself because you hustled for that. You worked for it. And that's the key because then their confidence goes up and then your earning potential can go up, right? Like that's the whole key.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, this has been amazing. Thank you for spending your time with me today. This is awesome. I always love to close the show with just how people can find you. Any other resources? Some people have a book, you have a podcast, just things like that. And then just anything else that you want to share with anybody in case there was something that we didn't get to.
Yeah, I mean, you can find me. You can go to Unpacking Eve and listen to some of this unearthing, sort of like the financial limitations. It's a very raw, lots of crying, but it's a very raw, moment for people where they're starting to understand where their money mindset comes from, and I think it's really
Wow.
important for people. I'm terrible on social media. I'm 50 years old, so it's like you can go to my Facebook and Instagram, but it's basic tumbleweeds going across the screen. I am not when I talked about authentic, social media is not authentic to me. It is not where my heart lives. I'm very quiet, private person. So it's very hard for me to put myself out there. I love when people put themselves out there because I enjoy seeing their lives and their happiness and their joy. But for me, it's never, I just didn't grow up with it. So it's like, chewing nails. So I do have Facebook and Instagram where they can see us. But I would love for people to check out Lime Life by Alcone. I would love for them to connect with a beauty guide, more importantly. And you don't need to connect with a beauty guide to buy something from them. Connect with a beauty guide because we love community here. Like,
Mm.
community is essential to happiness. And you can just say to a beauty guide, listen, I just want to be in connection with you. I don't want to buy anything. I don't, but you'd be surprised what could come out of a friendship like that. So find a new vision for yourself this year. Make 2023 a year that you do something quite different, quite exceptional, something that surprises you. Think outside the box. We have a new world that we're living in, and we can make it a more loving world where we find our place and we start to unlock our divine, or we can stay in, the same assumptions, rituals, mindset that we've always been in, and nothing will change. Like, find your heart-centered world in 2023 and make it happen.
What an amazing sentiment to leave on. I love that. Thank you so much, Michele. This is a pleasure. I feel like we're old friends already. This is just so awesome. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we will see you guys next week. Bye.